Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beautiful Thread podcast. I'm your host, Amaryllis. Thank you to everyone who is returning. Welcome back. And to all of you who are new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. We're so happy to have you here. I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to record this podcast today because today is a little bit different from what I normally post, what I normally talk about, but it's not foreign to me as a person and who I am. So I'm excited to let you guys into more of me as a person, but also excited to talk about this topic because I feel like it is relevant, not just for me, but for a lot of people. So here on the Beautiful Thread, we talk about the threads of our lives, which represent the stories of our lives. And when we put them in the Lord's hands, they become a bigger and more beautiful picture, right? For his glory. So he uses the trauma, he uses the joyful moments, he uses everything, right? Romans 8:28. So we typically here, I've talked a lot about my own personal stories, and then I really like to talk about the story of Jesus as is written in the Bible. And I really like to emphasize Jesus as the living word. Like he is, his story still is, he's not just words on a paper, he's alive. And so he is the biggest, his story is the biggest and most beautiful thread of all. And so with that being said, today's topic is still related because we're going to talk about fiction books that I read as a Christian. And so the reason why I want to talk about this is because me as a person, I've always been in love with books. I've always been in love with reading. I've always just had a heart for reading. When I was younger, I used to write a lot. Before I did this podcast, I had a blog, and I used to love writing. I still do. And even when I was younger, I dreamed of being a journalist. So back in like 90s, 2000s, where my late 80s, early 90s babies at, holla. We had a lot of magazines, right? There was like 17 magazine and Teen People and, all kinds of little Word Up, all kinds of little magazines for like teeny boppers. And I loved reading those, and I always dreamed of having my own column in a magazine. So I wanted to be a journalist growing up. So I've always had a love for literature and, writing. And so here I am as an adult, and I read a lot of the Bible, of course, which is that is the main theme here on this podcast. But I also read a lot of other books, like Bible companion books. I don't do a lot of devotionals, but I do read books about theology and about Bible history. And, those books are very enriching and very enlightening. But I have found myself lately really wanting to read for entertainment. And it's not to say that the Bible is boring. The Bible's not boring at all. But it's just, there's an element of fun in our lives where we do things just kind of like as a method of rest and relaxation and to laugh and to have fun. And that doesn't require a lot of like thought, a lot of mental energy, So I like a book that you could just pick up and put down at your leisure, basically. So I've been diving into the world of fiction. And now previous to this time in my life, I have read a lot of fiction, especially when I was younger, always at the library. Me and my mom used to go to this bookstore that I think has closed down since this time. It was called Borders. Back where I grew up, we used to go there all the time, books and CDs, I don't think they make CDs anymore, but yeah, I used to love it. So, always been a fan of fiction. I took a break from it for a while just because I didn't really have the time. And then, just like reading the Bible and like the books about the Bible, and now having children and a job and, the home life, it's sometimes hard to find time to do that. And I know a lot of you out there can relate with that, just time to find things to do for yourself and have fun. And so I'm like, you know what? I want to pick up fiction reading again. And so I'd say when my second child was born, I had a lot of downtime just because I was home all the time with him. And, when your kids are newborns, they just like sleep a lot most of the time. And so I decided to buy some books so I could read. And the books that were available mainstream that I was interested in, because I personally am interested in like romance, rom-com. Like, I love that stuff. I love those kinds of movies. Like, I love romance. And so the books I picked up were good. Like, the plot was good, but there was a lot of sexual content, right? Like, let's just be honest. Romance right now, this was just a couple years ago. It's like 20, I don't know, maybe like 3 years ago. So romance, and that's not a new thing either. Sexual content in romance books, like, that's not a new thing. But there used to be just like a genre of like erotica, you know what I'm saying? And like maybe like, other kind of romance books that you would see like back in the day with like the guy with the long like blonde hair, and he's like on a horse, and like you kind of knew like what those books were going to be. But now it's more mainstream where we're kind of weaving that sexual content into almost everything. So I read a couple books, and like it just didn't sit right with me, right? I try to like glaze over it, like those parts in the book where like it's just explicit like sexual interactions between characters. And they call it, in the book world, they call it spice, right? So like these just explicit spicy scenes between characters, and then there's a really cool plot, but it's just a lot of emphasis on these kinds of interactions. And I would just try to convince myself, like, you know what, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I just focus on the story and skip over those parts, right? And it's hard to skip over those parts. If you want to be honest, like, it's hard to skip over those parts. So, I read a couple books, and then I just stopped because I felt this conviction in my heart, like, this is not for you, right? And this may not be the same for everyone, but there is something about reading these books, these spicy books, that because it's mainstream, you think it's okay because the majority of people are reading these books, right? Having discussions about these books becoming movies, right? You think it's okay because it's mainstream, right? And there's also an element of these scenes in these books that they can kind of get ingrained in your mind more than any other kind of content in any other kind of book, right? And that's just a fact. I don't have the science behind that or even the logic behind that. But when it comes to scenes of a sexual nature, whether it be in a movie or in a book or something you see in real life, that stuff, those things can really become imprinted in your mind and hard to forget, right? And right now, I've been reading through 1 Corinthians as I make my way through the New Testament, and there's a lot in 1 Corinthians about sexual immorality and sexual sin and fleeing from sexual sin because it's a sin against your own body. Like, it's unlike other sins where in sexual immorality, you're sinning against your own body, right? So it's hard to get those things out of your mind because it's a sin against your body. Any kind of sexual immorality, like Paul says in 1 Corinthians, flee from it, like literally run for your life. There's something about it that it just can really weigh on you mentally, and it can pull you into a direction that you don't need to go, and oftentimes into a direction of like addiction. Now, thankfully, I didn't get there because that sense I had was so strong that I was like, I can't even enjoy reading this. I'm not doing it. I just let it go. After that, I was like, you know what? Maybe a few months ago, I was like, I really want to read something fun, romance. So then I looked up some recommendations from some YouTubers that I follow. I buy these books and, I'm reading the reviews. And it seems like, okay, this is going to be a nice romance book. And still, I flip through the books. There's still content in there. I get rid of the books. So then I just give up on it. I'm like, okay, this is just not going to happen. So I try one more time. This was maybe like last month. I try one more time and I'm like, you know what? Instead of looking for romance books from people I already follow, like, or watch their vlogs or whatever, because a lot of them do read like a lot of mainstream books. I'm like, let me search for clean romance books. So I go on Google, I search for clean romance books. I find this girl on YouTube. Her name is Oshina. And Oshina Gotta Read 'Em All. I think that's her tag here on YouTube. And once I found her, I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. I discovered the world of clean, no spice romance, but also Christian romance fiction. And now, for some of you, you may be very familiar with that and know that that's a thing, but I did not know that that was a thing. Like, I literally had no idea. I was like, what? There's Christian romance fiction? Are you joking me? So I start like consuming her videos because she has a lot of videos because she's also a believer. She also struggled with like reading like certain books with, just like this kind of, off the hook sexual content. Not like that, but she was in like, I think she was into like historical romance books, and there was a lot of scenes of that nature. And she kind of got like really, enveloped in that. But her testimony is that she was able to get out of that. The Lord redeemed her from that. And, now she's like advocating for clean romance and Christian romance. And so it's just beautiful. It was beautiful for me to see and discover this genre, right? And the thing is that it's been out for a while. I just had no idea because all I was thinking about was just the mainstream information that I had access to. And so here we are, fast forward, it's May 2025. And now I've finally found the most beautiful books I've ever read, honestly. From some lesser known authors, from some well-known authors. And it's just been so satisfying to be able to read a beautiful love story, right? To read about these characters and their backgrounds, and also the thread of faith being weaved in the story. It's just a beautiful thing. I've also found other books that are not necessarily Christian, but they're clean, where it's just two people and their stories. And it's just fun to read, and you don't feel guilty about it. You don't feel dirty or weird. And I know some of us have probably felt like that, right? Reading those kinds of things. And so I just want to share with you the books that I found. I'm very new at this, right? But I have a heart for this because I believe that, because I even know people who are believers, people I actually know, people who are believers who consume, these kinds of books and this kind of content, and they're uncomfortable with it, but they don't really know if it's a sin. They don't know if it's something they should put down. It's like, it's this weird thing because it's a book. So I really want our eyes as believers to be redeemed, because just because you're not watching these scenes in a movie, like, pornography or whatever, doesn't mean it's not equally as damaging. Doesn't mean that these images won't be burned into your brain, into your mind. Just because you read it in a book doesn't make it any less like explicit, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of us have thought, well, it's not like I'm watching, pornography on the TV. I'm just reading a book. No, it's the same. It's the same. So, this is also not to say that if any of you have read these things or currently are reading books with, like spicy books, it's not to condemn you or to say like, oh my God, you're terrible. What kind of person are you? Because I've read them. But the purpose is just to provide another option and to allow the Lord to really minister to us onto what into like what he wants us to really be consuming with our eyes, with our ears. Like, what does he really want us to be consuming? And that goes for everything across the board. I mean, it could be a regular TV show that doesn't even have that kind of content in it, but there are things that I believe the Lord wants us to be like separate from. And this could be a deeper conversation into like sanctification, which means the separation from sin. Us being separate from the world, right? Like, I believe that there's a separation that the Lord wants us to have from the world, and it's all throughout the Bible. You could read about it in the book of Romans, and Romans chapter 5, chapter 6. I mean, all throughout Romans, but you can, it's all throughout the Bible about us being set apart, God's chosen people, right? And I wish and I want that in our lives we invite him even into the minute areas, even into reading a book, because if books were not powerful, why would God have given us a book for life? A literal book, the Bible, right? So with that being said, I'm going to share a couple scriptures, and then after that, I'm going to share a couple of books with you, and I have an announcement, so please stay tuned to the end so you can hear my announcement. All right, so let's get into these scriptures. So we're going to go to Matthew 5:27 through 30, and it says, this is Jesus talking about adultery. You have heard that it was said, do not commit adultery, but I tell you, everyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. So the reason why I wanted to read this is firstly to talk about just the mere looking at someone with lust means that you've already committed adultery in your heart. And so if you're married and you look at another person, you read about another person, you see someone on TV, and you look at them with lust, if you're having feelings of lust, even if it's in the book, you've already committed adultery in your heart. That's very plain. Now, let's say you're not married, right? If you're not married and you're part of the body of Christ, we are the bride of Christ. And so we are accountable to God. So if you are looking upon something with lust in your heart, then you commit adultery. It's a sin against the Lord, right? Because he's the one who created you. He made your body. He didn't make your body for lust or to sin, but he wants all of you, right? So then the second part about if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And this verse is very emphatic. And I think it's because I believe Jesus really wants to illustrate the impact that sin has on your body and in your life, and how it can spread very quickly. If it goes, like, if he's using the eye as an illustration, if we intake these things through our eyes, right, and we become attached to it, addicted, how much will it spread throughout our whole body? Like, how much will sin overtake us? If we continue to entertain little things, it will become a big thing, right? And the Lord doesn't want that to happen. So I'm going to go to Matthew 7:13 through 14. And this is about entering the kingdom. It says, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who go through it. How narrow is the gate and difficult the road that leads to life, and few find it. Why am I talking about this? The reason why I'm saying this is because if these really spicy, sexually immoral, romantic books, right, are in the mainstream, widespread, that road is wide. And if you see a wide road, it's usually leading to destruction. But it's the narrow road that leads you to life. And it's hard to get on there because it means saying no to the things that everyone says is okay. It means that you stand alone and you say, that is not okay. Now, thankfully, if you are one of those people, who says you're not okay, you're not alone because the Lord is with you. And there are other people who have these same convictions and who really want to read clean literature. So the last thing I want to read is Proverbs 4:20-27. And the reason why I want to read this is because I want to encourage people, right, that lust and sexual immorality and entertaining pornographic imagery, whether it's in a book or on a TV, whatever. Today we're talking about books. This really has a lot to do with our relationship with the Lord and how we see him, right? Understanding that we are created beings and we were created for him, right? We were created for God. We're created through Jesus. Like everything about us has been created for him. And so there's an element of this where we need to grow, right? As the Lord sanctifies us here on this earth, the work of progressive sanctification where he has already separated us from sin because Jesus died on the cross. But in our walk as Christians, he is separating us, right? He is removing us, right? He is working on us. And so there's an element here of wisdom and choosing wisdom in the things that we do, right? So just because something may not be a strong conviction for you like it was for me, it's important in our walk as believers to choose wisdom, right? Because that's the narrow gate, to choose wisdom above what everyone else says is okay. So we're going to read Proverbs starting at verse 20, and it says, "My son, pay attention to my words. Listen closely to my sayings. Don't lose sight of them. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. Guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. Don't let your mouth speak dishonestly. Don't let your lips talk deviously. Let your eyes look forward. Fix your gaze straight ahead. Carefully consider the path for your feet, and all your ways will be established. Don't turn to the right or to the left. Keep your feet away from evil." So let's consider these passages today, especially this one about wisdom and the counsel of the Lord, to keep our eyes forward and fix our gaze straight ahead, and to carefully consider the path that we're on. Are we on the narrow path or are we on the wide path? Are we entertaining sin or are we keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus straight ahead so that he might establish our ways? So he might keep us from stumbling, keep us from evil when we keep our eyes stayed on him. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into these books real quick, really quick, because I'm really new at this. So the first fiction Christian book I read, I was just saying bye to my husband because he left out the house. The first Christian fiction romance book I read is called The Masterpiece. I'm going to plug a picture in like over here somewhere. I don't have the book because I lent it to a friend, but it is the most beautiful book. It's by Francine Rivers, and it's a romance, a single mom, an artist. She works for him. She's on her faith journey. He's like off the hook doing crazy stuff. They're attracted to each other, but she's like, you know what? I'm not doing that with you. And he has to find his way to Jesus. And it's just the most beautiful book ever. Like just people's real stories that you can resonate with. The next one that I just finished is called Never Fall Again. This is by Lynn H. Blackburn. This was super cool because this was a romantic, so fiction, Christian, romantic, suspense. So there was like some mystery in here and some suspense. This is another single mom. She's in a small town trying to get a new start, and some crazy things happen at the place that she works, like explosions and just like really crazy things. She finds love, but she's hesitant about it because, she's trying to protect her daughter, and just like there's a crazy twist at the end. It's like, it was such a good read. Good faith thread in here. Like, it's just beautiful. And then the last one that I'm currently reading is Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Tagg. So I just started reading this. But there's this person in here who she lost her daughter, and now she's searching for her granddaughter, and she's convinced that her granddaughter is alive. And there's this mystery around, like, she found a girl she thinks is her granddaughter. There's a mystery around, is she really going to be the one, because she's tried and failed so many times at finding her. So she moves from a big city to this small town in Maine, and that's where I'm at right now. I don't know what else happens, but I'm excited about this one. And I have some other books that I've purchased. So as we get into this, as I integrate this into the content, like, I'll get into the books that I purchased, but those are some that I have just as recommendations for you. If you're like me and you really want to, find some other options for, like, romance books. Those are some that I would recommend. And then also, drum roll, my big announcement is I'm going to be starting a book club. Yay! Insert confetti. Yay! So I'm going to be starting a book club, and I'm so excited about it. I don't have all the logistics yet, but in the description box, I'm going to put something down there where you can, like, sign up just to, like, as, like, an interest. I want to see, like, who's actually interested to join, like, a list. And then, like, I'll be able to send information on, like, when it actually launches and all that. But if you're interested, check the description box so you can get notified of when I actually launch the book club. But this is something in my heart. I really believe that the Lord is calling me to this. I wasn't expecting it, but it makes a lot of sense just based on who I've always been and, like, this platform here. So again, I'm starting a book club, and it's gonna be about fiction, but it's also gonna be, we're gonna read fiction, but we're also gonna be reading the Bible, because first and foremost, my favorite book of all time is the Bible, La Biblia. Okay, the Bible. So again, if you're interested, check the description box so you can be notified when it launches. I'm so excited. Thank you to everyone who's just here and listening to me. I appreciate you, and I love you all. And I just pray that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you would encounter the Lord in his great love today, no matter what you're struggling with, whatever it is. If it has to do with, like, intaking content that you shouldn't be intaking, maybe being, like, kind of pulled away into some sin that you haven't really had, like, victory over. I just pray wherever you are that that you would feel the Lord's presence, that you would remember and know that he is with you and that he loves you, that you are loved by your Creator, you are loved by your Father, and there is redemption for you in Jesus. There is victory for you in Jesus. There is freedom for you in Jesus, no matter what it is. Okay? I love you guys. I can't wait to see you in the next episode and in the new book club. And I'll talk to you guys later. Mwah.